I'm so proud to have our film at the New York Film Festival in my hometown. There's nothing more inspiring to me than seeing a film on a screen at Alice Tully Hall. When I saw The Power of the Dog here, as the first film on a screen since pandemic, it reminded me of the power of cinema and what we love about the communal experience. I'm so sorry to not be there with you, but I'm with my mother, to whom this film is dedicated. Thank you to my great team who helped make this film. Thank you to the New York Film Festival, Dennis Lim, and A24.
Youree, we're obviously sorry not to have Sofia here, but we're thinking of her, and thank you to all of you for being here. I thought I'll start with you, Youree, and maybe you've had a long working relationship with Sofia. I think since somewhere.
Yeah, that was our first one.
So I'm wondering if you can talk us through just the origins of this project and her interest in Priscilla Presley as a figure, and also in Priscilla's book.
Mm-hmm. We have been during pandemic. We have been talking about another project at great length, and then strangely, it just didn't. It wasn't meant to be. And so she started talking about this that she had been thinking about and working on, but we hadn't really talked about it much. And then she, all of a sudden, that became the thing that we started focusing on. And she sent the script, and we started talking about all the things you do, like how we might make it, where we might make it, who would be in it, that kind of stuff. And then, thankfully, for her, she has, we've made a few movies together, because I've made, thankfully, some movies with her, and then also Stacey and Philippe, who's not here, who shot the movie, and Sarah Flack, who edits it. So it was sort of a cast of usual suspects in a great way. And then we kind of set off to start putting it together. And we weren't really sure where we would make it. We had some ideas. And then thankfully we ended up in Toronto, and we met Tamara, who designed the movie. And we hadn't worked together, but immediately as we started to get into it, it felt like we were connected and we were all making the same movie. And it was a really wonderful experience. I had never shot a film there, and we had an incredible crew, an incredible supporting cast there. I had an amazing production team led by Chris Hatcher and his entire team, and it was a really beautiful experience. And to be honest too, we didn't really know how we were going to get it made. The ambitions of the movie were sort of greater than the money we could raise for it. And making films like this, even with Sofia, everyone's like, oh, Sofia, she probably can get whatever she wants. It's really just not the case. We had to really, put our heads together to try to figure out a way to kind of, in a scrappy way, do a very deep period piece that goes over so many time periods, but somehow we did it. We kind of were like, I kind of likened it to, we were jumping out of the plane, and then we were like making the parachute as we were landing, and thankfully we had really great people to help us make this parachute, and then we got Cailee and Jacob, and the things started to fall into place, but when we first got out there, we were like, what do we have? I don't see Memphis, anything that looks like Memphis, or anything that looks like Graceland, we were just really, it was pretty daunting, So when you see the movie, we're so proud of it, because everybody who worked on this movie, it felt like everybody's heart was in the movie, and it's great, and we're so happy to share it now. Yes.
I know that Priscilla Presley was with you all in Venice for the premiere. I'm wondering if you can say a bit about her involvement, at what stage was she approached, and to what extent did she participate?
Sure. Sofia had been talking to Priscilla for a while, and then I know that there were times, for instance, that we would be scouting, or we'd be doing different parts of the film, and it was like, oh, okay, wait, I have to go take a call, and she would sort of disappear, sometimes for 15 minutes, sometimes for 2 hours, and it was, but she was talking to Priscilla, and they would go through the script, and they would go through So she was consulting in that way. And then when we finally showed the film to her, that was, I mean, for me, I just don't know what it would be like to have a movie made about you, you know, and how weird it would be, you know, and because you were there. And so even though it was, you know, taken from this book that she had written, and it was from stuff that was out there and all that, it's still different than when you're watching it. And also she wrote this, I think the book was published in like the 80s, 85, right? So it's like, you know, memory is an interesting thing. And so it sort of is like, you know, who you were when you wrote it then versus who you were right now. But when we finally showed it to her and she looked at Sofia and she was visibly emotional, having watched the movie, and then told Sofia that she had really done her homework and that she really loved it and thought that she got it right. I mean, that was everything, you know, because you want to honor that story, you know, and the fact that she really liked it and was supportive was great. And then for us to be in Venice was obviously really exciting. Always showing the movie is like terrifying and exciting and all those things. And but to see her there and then to see people really appreciating her was really cool and so that was nice to watch.
I'd like to hear you maybe talk a little bit about bringing Cailee and Jacob on board. Casting is such an important part of a film like this. Maybe you can say a bit, and I'd love to hear from both of you as well.
I'm sorry about
casting
Cailee
and Jacob.
Oh yeah, I mean we were like, okay, who's gonna be Priscilla? You know, like that's such an iconic. And then on top of it, it's like also Priscilla Presley. You know, it's a massive thing, right? So Cailee came on board. I think Sofia was really sad. Like I'm trying to think about if there were other people, and they're just even in our discussions. I think she had talked to Kirsten, right? And so she was saying, well, it's Cailee for Priscilla, and I was like, okay, cool. And so Cailee was on board, and then we, I think you and Sofia met. When did you all meet?
Yeah, we had breakfast together. I don't know what kind of time frame around your casting or what.
Do you remember what you guys ate? I'm kidding.
No, I just remember I was like looking at Fred Roos.
Oh my God, Fred was there. Yeah, that's incredible. I love Fred.
Beverly Hills Hotel, Fred Roos was there. And she didn't mention the movie once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems right.
We just talked about Rocky and Cozy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds right. And so that, you know, then that was it. I mean, I think with Sofia, she's always very decisive with casting. Sometimes you get into, on other projects, you get into like multiple options and universes of different casts and going out to this person, that person. Thankfully with Sofia, you know, creatively and otherwise, she's always very like, this is what I want. And so that's how we're lucky enough to have these two who I think are exceptional in the movie. And I'll kick it back. Yeah.
Cailee, can you say a little bit about how you approached the role? Something that Youree said about the film covering a certain span of time is important. I mean, the Priscilla at the end of the film is very different from the one we met at the start.
Her arc and her journey with this man finding this at the end. So that was definitely something I tried to spend as much time as I could. And then once you know, the jumping of the airplane analogy is exactly what happened. You just sort of have to cross your fingers and hope that your homework really comes through. But I will say, Stacey did a beautiful job, and that was such a grounding piece in sort of keeping my head on straight on where I was, and you know, in the morning I'd be pregnant, and then after lunch I'd be 14 years old. So those costumes and hair and makeup were, you know, huge, grounding me in that arc and that journey, and sort of informed how I would move and my memories and
when you're playing, a real life person, I'm curious if you met with Priscilla, and I'm curious if physical resemblance matter or not so much.
I think Priscilla was very gracious with her time, and we met in Los Angeles, and just her telling me that we ended up talking for about 4 hours, and for her to take that time and really go into the story, and we were every day with me, and I really tried to make sure it didn't feel like I was sort of trying to sort of into it, but the kind of, just felt like I was reported, and I just tried to sort of sit back and see how much she felt comfortable telling me. But just being in front of her and in her presence was so informative, and how I played tried to do my version of her story. She was in from different times, different generations. She's American royalty, really, the way she holds herself now. And in fact, the memories and how she speaks and how she says about life is very important. And you just, like I said, you just hope to all come through and start telling the world and just getting into the scene.
And Jacob, about approaching Elvis, Priscilla's a public figure, but Elvis is another level of public figure. In terms of how, extensively documented he is as a person, I'm wondering how you factor into his performance in relation to how you saw the Elvis of this film.
Right. I think that part of the publicity information is sort of what that doesn't make it easy, but it gives you this kind of really recognition of the kind of reaction. The biggest thing that we were sort of taking out of the art was, I mean, we don't see it as a professional I think it was about capturing the essence of the person. The dedication was trying to identify and find the human being or underlying with themselves and the voice of the character. So we really just thought it was a great exercise to really understand the relationship with the story about storytelling, which is imagine that it is Sofia Coppola as a huge focus of this experience. And I think that's kind of the role that Sofia played for is trying to see how this scene is opening the doors and embracing
Here, because I think Sofia's films are these incredible feats of world building, and I think costume and production design are such important parts of it. Cailee, you've already mentioned the importance of Stacey's work, in terms of grounding your character. Stacey, can you talk a little bit about just the research process for something like this, where you're working with real figures and over a certain span of time?
I think it goes back a little bit to what Jacob said, is that there is a historical element and that we have real life to draw from, but then also trying to find what is their life privately and who are they privately without the photos that we've seen. So kind of filling in the blanks and doing that with research, obviously through magazines and other publications, libraries, that sort of thing, and working closely with Tamara, because I think a big part of it is also just making sure that the dolls belong in the dollhouse.
The wedding cake. That's what
The wedding cake.
That's how we approached Graceland. It was like, Sophia wanted it to feel like a wedding cake. and it's many layers of cream and cream paint. And, you know, we looked at the research, and surprisingly, there's very little research on Graceland in the early time when Priscilla first arrived. Like, I think we had 1 or 2 photos that we kind of clung to, but then we just created our own world, and that the upstairs of Elvis's bedroom and bathroom, in our period, there's nothing. There's nothing. There's later photos when he did sort of this red empire look. So yeah, the research kind of, you know, didn't exist, so we kind of had carte blanche to do what we wanted and make our own world specific to Sofia's vision.
Did you look at the William Eggleston photographs of Graceland?
Absolutely, and I'm a huge fan of William Eggleston, so I knew with Sofia, when she brought that up as one of her main references, that we were going to be in a good place, because yeah, we were drawing a lot from that, both Stacey and I, the colors, just the composition of them. And there was a couple of other references, like in The Mood for Love, the Chinese film, was a big reference for Philip and I. There was a hallway that we kind of grabbed for the hallway in the hotel at the end. So we picked from different things that we loved.
Also, I want to say,
Easter egg.
we also gave them like $2 each.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they had like nothing.
This is true. It's amazing what you can find. Like, we were in an old studio warehouse that Chris Hatcher, one of our producers, had been doing a number of shows, and there were windows lined up, leaning against walls. And I said, well, let's just undoors. I said, those look enough like Graceland, because it's covered with drapes. We had so much drapery that we really, literally, were able to stay on budget because, you know, what budget? Because we could reuse stuff.
Also, we had traditionally made most of the films we had done on location. That's sort of the default when you look at it. Obviously, Graceland's a very specific thing. The interesting thing when we would look at Graceland photos, though, that they actually looked like sets. You know, it was like, wait, if we built that, you know, it was just this weird sort of thing. And then because of weather and a number of other things, we ended up shooting a lot of this on stage. And it was really cool though, because in that kind of old fashion of making a film like on a back lot, you know, we were all contained. So like where they were building the sets was right outside of where, you know, Stacey had her costumes, and then it was right next to where, you know, another department was, and so you could kind of walk through and see the movie, you know.
While we played pickleball.
That's a whole other movie. It feels like.
Sofia, at her best, she had us put in one corner of the stage a pickleball court, and that's where the crew really connected and got their yachts over lunch.
I wasn't sure it was ever going to come up, but since it has.
Sorry.
It was definitely something too that when you're already thinking, how are we going to make this movie in 30 days? Like, that's insane. You know, we started with 40 days, and then we're like, we're never going to go less than 35 days. It's impossible. And then the next thing you know, you're like, okay, so 30 days, it's going to be great. We're going to figure it out. And then I look over one day, and I think they're building a set, and I'm like, I don't remember a tennis scene. What's happening? And then it was like, oh no, we're gonna play some pickleball here. And it's like, we're done. That's not gonna happen. But what it did was it actually really galvanized like our crew and our cast, and it was weird. Instead of people like over near craft service on their phones, everybody was just like, do you want to go do a game? And everybody was out there, and then it became everybody. It was really wonderful. It challenged all my ideas of like, you know, of work and management, time management. I mean, it was like, it was great. And everybody, when we were working, we never waited on somebody who's like, can Jacob please come back and stop playing pickleball? Like, we need him on set. Like, that never happened, you know. And it was just, it was really wonderful. It was a wonderful experience making the film too. Like, we were really a great family, and it was great. Yeah.
Great. We're going to open it up to the audience for questions. We'll start over there, if you can wait for a microphone.
Hi, great film, congratulations to all of you. I'm curious about the music, because there are no Elvis songs. For one thing, is that a problem just with the estate, or just clearing financially, or anything, other reasons?
Yeah, you know, there was never a lot of Elvis songs, believe it or not, in the film originally. There were a couple of things that we were thinking of doing, and then ultimately we ended up with this, I want to say score this music, because a lot of its source, even stuff that feels like score art, is sometimes some things that have been modified. Randall Poster was our music supervisor. Phoenix, who's done probably every film since somewhere, right? They were involved. They're always kind of involved because Sophia's married to Mom, who's in the band, and so there's always sort of music. Even when we're shooting the movie, there's music that's played on set. Sometimes it's for mood. Sometimes it's like, oh no, we know that this is this thing that we're going to use. And so it was a long road, believe it or not. Like, even though we knew there were certain cues, we were still swapping stuff out at the 11th hour, you know, to try some new thing. And
You didn't want to use any Elvis songs per se, his own songs?
yeah, it was we couldn't really, you know. It was something that we decided to steer away from. So that's why. And also, we kind of, you know, there was another Elvis movie that had come out, and so that was it was great, but it was so different than what it was that we were doing, and a lot of that stuff was really well handled before, and we were doing something very different.
Plus, it's Priscilla's story, lest we forget.
Right.
Good
That's
point.
that was always sort of the anchor too, you know, because it's easy to get distracted, you know, and because Elvis is so sparkly. But for us, we were very diligent about it always being, you know, Priscilla's story, because everybody knows Elvis, but not a lot of people do Priscilla's story. Did that answer? Yeah, I think yeah.
Yeah, right there in the middle. Yep.
Thank you. So this is for Cailee and Jacob. Hi.
Hi.
You've already mentioned how important costuming was, but I'm wondering if there was any specific article of clothing, a specific way that makeup was done, hair was done, that would really get you into character.
I think it was a combination of everything. For me, it was down to when I would we had all the jewelry from the estate, and it would be when I'd sort of clasp the ID bracelet or put the horseshoe ring on. It was like the kind of final touches, but it was a combination of everything. It was then being able to walk into this pretty bleak-looking factory that we were working out of, and then you walk in and there's the lines of Graceland there. So it was kind of the whole world was built for us. So it was almost impossible not to feel.
Yeah, we felt like we had it easy when you walk into the set like that and you're wearing those kinds of costumes. I mean, a lot of the work is done for you. So it's a real gift to us actors. Yeah, I mean, there were times when I had that beehive on where I'm like, I actually can't move any other way than this. I don't really have any other options in these heels, and so it definitely informed a lot of how I held myself.
You spoke to this earlier, too, though, but it was really like, I mean, it was some of these days, because of the production schedule, I mean, you were jumping so many years, so many looks, it was really wild to watch that. And some of the looks that Leona put together, it's almost like if you didn't have the reference, you almost wouldn't even believe it was real. You know, it's just so.
Yeah, sometimes you go, is the hair really that big? I mean, it's like another head on top of your head.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
You're
what
like,
she-
actually, it's kind of brought down a little bit.
She brought it down a little bit, yeah, and lightened her hair.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wasn't gonna fit through the doorways.
Leona, who did the hair, though, she was so incredible. She was so relentless. I mean, it was, yeah. I remember one day, do you remember when she was pulling people extras out?
Yes, I do remember. Also, Joe, who did the makeup, was
Oh my
pretty
God, Joe,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing, but Leona was pulling extras out. We're shooting the scene where the effects were not for
Because
Vegas.
they had bad hair.
Well, the thing was, she said to me, she was like, hey, look, what's happening? Is everything okay? She's like, all the bald people, they have to get out. All these guys, they gotta get out. And I was like, I don't understand. What do you mean? There were bald people and she was like, but not like that. They weren't bald like you. They were different balls, they had comb overs, and I was like, she was like, you would have a comb over. And I was like, well, okay. But it was that kind of thing, where she was just constantly, always keeping an eye on. I felt that way about everybody, though. We were all really focused on all of the details, and obviously Sofia most of all, but we were all there, like, you know, in a very kind of handmade way, making, you know, the same movie, and it
Which
felt.
also says so much about Sophia herself, because everyone just wants to bring their top A game. They're like, nah, this is not the film to sit back.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you really felt that she brought everyone together in that way. Everyone wants to work hard for her.
Yeah, and she really, and by example, she's doing it, and so we all, you know, want to do our best work. So she really, from the top down, it's a wonderful experience.
And I think everyone on our film sets always feels included. It doesn't matter what department you're in or how low on the totem pole you are. You know, everyone does feel like they're part of making the movie.
Yes.
And
It's
that
not always
comes
like
from
that.
Sophia.
We'll take, I guess you're all in front, right here.
I guess I'll say. Hi. First of all, beautiful work. This question is mostly for the actors, which is just what was interesting to me about the film is like obviously Priscilla and Elvis are going through like so many changes like seismically as the film goes on, and especially in like the final third of the movie. And I'm sort of curious about the process because what was so interesting to me was this nature by which the film would sort of like fade out of these moments. So sort of you'd have these scenes that would be like quite dramatic, but then it would just sort of like fade out of them and then kind of jump back in, and it would be much later in time, or like a transformation would have occurred that's fairly significant. But you know, there would be like a lot in between that I think was just being suggested more so than shown, which was really powerful to me. But I'm curious as actors, just sort of like how do you approach these transformations, just knowing that like in the film, or at least in the script, that like whether there's these kind of gaps of things that we aren't seeing, you know, that like there's like I guess like steps that aren't being shown. Like what was the process of getting there?
I can actually speak, I think, on behalf of you. Cailee, there is no gap in Cailee's performance on paper. On set, I would go, and I'm a fairly well prepared performer, and I would say, what year is this? And she would pull out her script, and she had every single thing catalogued to the year. So any in between, Cailee would know exactly what had happened in those sort of suggestive blanks. So I was.
We were good study buddies. We'd be like,
Yeah,
hey, so this is looking like 65. I don't know what you have.
We were pretty dorky about the whole thing. So any of this, I think both of us, I sort of built Elvis as well, but Cailee built Priscilla's, and I think we kind of met in the middle on those gaps to where we were both just, we had our our own language, I think, of the entire timeline, not just what was shown on screen. Does that sound right? Do we have that?
Yeah, I think we did. I think we did. And also, there's also the way that Sophia chose to tell the story is really beautiful in the sense that it's really sort of impressionistic and about sort of emotion and feeling and flashes of memories, and you go into this sort of dreamlike fantasy world. And I think, you know, we don't hang on a beat too long because you just feel like you're in this sort of Alice in Wonderland dreamland and sort of. So I think in terms of the way that those scenes are portrayed, I think that was all intentional, the way she told the story.
The costumes are also often heartbreaking because it's a child playing dress up, it feels very often. It's not up to the point of the baby having the big earrings. So it is this child being grown up. Could you talk a little bit about how you work?
I think we had really great participatory cast. So I think that is a big part of making the costumes because they were both so patient and came to so many fittings and were really the best cast you could ever ask for. And yeah, I think that helped, and just nuances, because if you have somebody there with you that's participating, that's going to play the role, that's willing to stand still while we figure out all those little details, I think it helps to, to find the nuance. If somebody comes in and says, like, I have an hour and that's all we've got, to do 120 costumes in an hour, it's a lot more difficult to find the nuances, because you find the character and all of those things kind of together. Like, I'm making the costume, but they're playing the role, so like it's really a collaborative effort to find those details. And I'm glad you saw that, because I think it is true that it's somehow a child playing dress up.
Yes, right there.
Yes, this is for the actors, but also anyone who wants to answer. Obviously, this is Priscilla's story, and it's lesser known to the audiences. Was there any part of her story that was surprising to you as a performer? And if so, like, what were you excited to portray in that surprise of her story? Cailee and Jacob, if you want to answer, but also the rest of the team.
Yeah, well, I grew up in the southern Midwest. I was born in Tennessee, grew up going to Graceland as a kid, so I really, understood the weight that he carried. And I have a memory of like my dad walking around in Graceland, and "If I Can Dream" is on the speakers, and he starts crying. So like, I really understood the weight of this man as a young child. But even having that, I had no idea her side of the story, and I was surprised that this wasn't sort of common knowledge, her side. So definitely was new to me, and some sort of shocking, heartbreaking details, and sort of their journey of the relationship from her point of view was all sort of fascinating to dive into.
Do you want to weigh in here?
Really super honest, I completely forgot the question. So I was hoping you would ask shocking details of the story. Pretty much what Cailee said.
All right. Yeah.
Hi. This is a question for Tamara, right? For production designer. I noticed kind of like a 3-act structure to the various bedrooms that they spend a lot of time in, and they're getting darker, having like a Jesus statue, like apocalyptic red at the end. Can you speak a little bit about the evolution of those sets, how you created them to flow with the story?
Well, the bedroom, as I mentioned earlier, we didn't really have much to go on, so we were really free. But I did look at the plans, which are available online, having never been to Graceland. And you can't, if you do go to Graceland, you can't go upstairs. It's off limits. So I was really free to make my own world up. But I did follow the basic plans of the house. That you went up the stairs, the geography was correct. And there were little tidbits, and some of them were from some later photographs in Elvis's room, once post Priscilla in his life. And there was just things in the book, and in Priscilla Presley's book, and other things that I was reading, going to the University of Elvis and Priscilla for like crash course for a few weeks when we started. But like the Jesus statue was something that Elvis had, and he did have these cookie. I don't know if that's what you're referring to, those cookie dog statues. And I mean, we found them when we looked at the research with Sofia, and she said, "I love that stuff." And they became a real sort of element of the stillness of the movie. These little, I can't remember how many left are in the movie, but these little statues and things. They're sort of like, to me, it's the feeling of you're in Elvis's world, but really you're being watched all the time, and that's Elvis's character. And then for Priscilla, to me, it was always like she was never. I felt, and this is just me, she was always a guest in the house. It was never really her place. So I sort of took the production design from more with Elvis. It was all Elvis. Elvis had gold walls in his office, which was kind of based on research, but we took it a bit further. So, played around with some some of the real research and some of the stories and just some of the tone, and really the tone that Sofia wanted. And the stuff that would work with costumes, like Stacey and I had these long conversations about Elvis's blue pajamas and the blue in the room and how would that work, and would Elvis have blue pajamas in a blue room, and yeah, he's kind of matching his space, and you remember those conversations?
I remember, and I have a really great photo of the hair salon with just the robe inside the sink. I think we went in there together and were like, which robe do we like?
Right.
We put the robes in the sink with no Cailee. We didn't meet her that day.
It was fun
She was working.
to watch everybody also working like it's supposed to be. Like everybody felt like we were all making the same movie. Sometimes it's like everybody sort of, the movie can still turn out fine, but sometimes each department is sort of doing its own thing, And in this case, it felt like we were all there, obviously under Sofia, but everyone was there making the same movie, and a lot of the details I think made their way in. You had built such a world that this world had been so detailed out that there were times when we would be waiting because you were going from being 14 to being 24, and we had like 7 minutes to do it. Of course, it did take 7 minutes. But while we were there, Philippe would look over, Sofia would be like, "Oh, look at that tchotchke right there," and then you would start to build a thing around that. And a lot of that stuff made its way into the movie. And those were things that, again, because it was so fleshed out, you could be inspired to go make this other thing that you might just pass by. That really, I think, has a strong place in the film.
And I mean, Graceland is kitsch, and we were sort of celebrating the kitsch of Graceland in that way, embracing it.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Well, we're out of time, but I want to thank all of you and, of course, Sofia.
Thank you.